We're just a few short weeks away from Great Falls transforming into the Western art capital of the world for Western Art Week. Now, although it's been going on strong for nearly 6 decades, this year's Russell auction is expected to be historic. We'll tell you why. But before we get to the episode, a quick note, if you'd just take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, write a review, we'd sure appreciate it. It helps others learn and know about this podcast. All right, now to this episode of We're No Damn Experts.
Best damn podcast, the best damn town. You want to get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Thames. If you want to go, we can take you there to Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls.
Just feeling spicy over here today.
I'm Rebecca Ingham.
I'm Shannon Newth,
and we're no damn experts. You should learn what happens before the podcast starts. It's really a lot of fun.
That was recording, so I have your
good
phrase available for broadcast. Yes.
Shannon, I love it when I just show up here and people are in the room. So I happen to know the people.
So
but
every podcast recorded. Just kidding.
What is in store today?
Yeah, well, we are excited and gearing up for Western Art Week. We've heard from a couple artists so far for one show, and we wanted to bring back our friends from the C.M. Russell Museum, not only because this is a flagship event as part of Western Art Week, but it's a historic year. So we have Jessica and Chris from the museum. Thanks, guys, for being here. Welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
It is.
I'm so excited you're here. Let us share first. Our listeners, you've met Chris before.
Mm-hmm.
You may not remember him, but he's got a solid episode in our history. You've never met Jessica. So
you may have heard her voice vaguely in the background on one, I think.
Yelling at people. But let's give our audience just a real quick recap of who you are and what and are you a Great Falls girl? How long you been with the museum? What things you do in your spare time?
How much time do we have?
How much time do we have? I mean, until you have to leave. Yeah.
Well, I am the senior director of operations and HR at the museum, but I am
You deal with people all the time.
I sure do. Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Bless you.
I've been there almost 8 years.
Ooh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
The time flies.
It does.
But one of my responsibilities is the Russell, so I help arrange the event. So this 3-day celebration of Western art falls under my wheelhouse, and I'm coordinating to ensure that we just put on the best event we possibly can to celebrate Western art in Great Falls.
So 8 years ago, you learned about Charlie Russell, or did you know about him before
I
that?
learned about him in 5th grade, like everybody else in Great Falls.
Yes.
Great Falls girl. That's
Did
what
you
we
win?
like.
Did you win the essay contest?
Sadly, I didn't. My children didn't either, which they were really disappointed. They thought I should just write that essay for them.
Well, that. And
I brought Jessica's essay. We'll read it at the end of the episode.
Perfect,
Yeah.
Chris. You were
Perfect.
on it.
Perfect. Now, for our listeners, just as a great recap, the whole reason we have Western Art Week, the whole reason we celebrate and become the Western art capital of the world is because of Charlie Russell and Norma Ashby Smith. So
And Nancy Russell.
Oh, and Nancy. I forget.
I'm currently working on her story, so I
Okay,
just
there we go.
had to throw that in there.
And so that's the big leader that I want to make sure we cover, because that event's coming up March 19th. What? March 8th?
Sorry, I thought you meant Charlie's birthday. I was going to jump in.
Well, it's around Charlie's birthday, which is
March 18th.
There we go. And this year's Western Art Week starts on March 19th and goes until the 22nd. So always around Charlie's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Always. This
Correct.
year is the 57th auction.
Yep.
Look at me knowing stuff.
Good job.
The
That's
other
a
thing-
long-standing
Yeah.
event.
The other thing I think I know, and then this should tee us up for something else. Isn't this the year that had historic year, Shannon said, but the year where the most Russells will be auctioned off ever in the history?
It is.
Oh, see, I'm not lying.
Good job.
No,
Yeah.
somebody has really briefed you well. We
No,
have
I think it's
Shannon.
probably you all. we
That's
just
all I
read your
know.
information.
That's all I know.
So yeah, let's take it from there, Guess. Tell
dig
us
in.
things.
Yeah, so there's a couple records this year that we're really proud to not just share with the Great Falls community, but also celebrate with the Great Falls community, because it's not like we go away and just work 1 year and create a record. The Russell auction is many hands have contributed it over 57 years. And
That's
so
It's insane
It's a
to me
long
that it's
time.
continued this long.
I think thousands of people could listen to this podcast and say, I've contributed somewhere along the way,
Yeah.
whether that was through the Russell Museum or through the Ag Club that used to do
Yeah.
the auction. We're really building on top of what all these people have done over the years in the community. So the big record that we have is around historic work. So we, our auction focuses on not just historic work are, big names that are no longer with us.
Okay.
And so,
So old paintings that were created a long time ago.
Yep.
Or old artwork.
yeah, and we really focus on Charlie Russell and his contemporaries. And so those are artists that people would absolutely know in this community. It could be O.C. Seltzer.
Mm.
It could be Paxson.
Remington.
It
is
could
he
be
a guy?
Remington. It could be Sharp. It's the list is long. And what's amazing is we have artwork from almost everybody on that list, in addition to Russell. So the big record is that we have over 120 pieces of historic art. So much that we've had to expand the auction. We've always had a big night on Saturday where we focus on historic art. We have some historic art in our Friday night auction. And we actually have an online auction for the first time
Oh, wow.
that has the most amazing pieces. And we'll touch on that later. But that's our first big first. Our second big first is there's about 30 Russells in
Oh,
the
my.
auction. And people always say, oh my gosh, are you guys struggling financially? Are you selling the art of the Russell Museum?
Pulling
And-
things out of the archive.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're actually not doing that at all. Is if you visited the Russell Museum, you know that we just have an exquisite collection
Mhm.
that will blow your mind. So if you haven't been, go see that. That's not what we're auctioning off. There are collectors that over time want to sell their work. And the challenge is for us is that there's very few people that want to sell their Russells. They're so coveted worldwide
Yeah.
and in demand that we're lucky to get a couple every year. And we're always really proud to get the ones that we do. But this year we have a selection that will just blow your mind. And
30 Russells, originals, obviously. We're not talking about prints here, right?
there's a couple pieces, like there's a little bit of an asterisk on that because there's a couple pieces that I don't know that you would call them prints, but they're called after Russells. And so they're some copies of what he did. They can't like fully be stamped with done during his lifetime.
Okay.
But we're in the high 20s of absolutely, these are Russell pieces that are known Russell pieces that are significant Russell pieces. It's just almost an embarrassment of riches, right?
Mhm.
With the amount of art that we have that's not just Russell, but his contemporaries.
Are some of the are they all paintings, or are some of the after Russell's bronzes that were
Mhm.
finished later? Because
that makes a little bit of sense.
because again, in my story of Nancy that I'm working on, it was talked about that he left some
He did.
sculpture for Nancy to be able to sell or get income from after he passed. It, I guess, first, is that true? And second, are those
Yeah,
pieces
I
that were
think there's
considered in
one
this?
sculpture that fits that.
okay?
But definitely, people that are interested in the Russells, look at the catalog. It's all
Mm.
clearly outlined. And really, the takeaway is just the most amazing artwork. And Jessica, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about all the different types that are in there, but
Well,
the breadth of his artwork that we have is amazing.
I was going to get us oriented before we did that, only because we're talking about an event during Western Art Week that is Saturday night, but there's multiple events that are happening connected to the Russell experience. And this is just one of like 14 shows that are happening in town. But the whole reason all these 14 shows happen is really because of the Russell auction that started. And many locals still even refer to Western Art Week as the Russell auction because they don't know about everything else. So with that frame of reference, you can go to westernartweek.com and learn all about all the other shows. But what Chris was just talking about Saturday night is one of many events. So can you tell me what else is happening in conjunction to that Saturday night auction?
Sure. Thursday, the 20th, we kick off with an art preview party at the museum. We invite roughly 600 people to the museum to see every single piece of art that is going to be sold either Friday night at First Strike or Saturday's live auction, or as Chris mentioned, the silent auction items are also on display. So you have now until March 20th to see that artwork hanging on the walls. So next 30 days. Even if you can't get to Great Falls for Western Art Week, but you are coming to town early, please put it on your list of things to do because the museum's never looked more beautiful.
Well, and it's a historic moment just to have all that kind of artwork that is technically going to be available for sale on display at the museum.
Absolutely. And it really is something to be seen because these are pieces that you would any other way never get to see. They're owned by private collectors. They do not grace the walls of other museums. So these are pieces I walk through there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like how lucky are we to be able to see these pieces before they go off to another collector's home that we then, may not see them for another 15, 20 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
Unless we rub elbows with those kind of people and we're just hanging out in their foyer
Inviting
drinking
to
whiskey.
their home. Yeah.
It is. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah,
to see these pieces.
It's really fun. And that art preview party, I will say, even if you have people coming into town that aren't really sure about Western Art Week yet, that's a great event to like dip your toe a little bit in what we're doing because it's a really fun party. We have food, drink. The attendees are not only people coming to the auction, but the artists that created them. So at that event that night, you're literally walking around and looking at pieces right there with the artists that created it. I mean, it's pretty incredible experience.
And I'd say it's a fairly good sampling of the kind of art you're going to see in Great Falls. It's not just the Old West cowboy art. It's not just landscapes. It's not these beautiful photos or beautiful paintings of horses, but they're bright colors. They're crazy. I mean, expand your mind. It's going to be available. What are the ticket prices for something like that?
So Thursday night's ticket for members is $60. Our memberships are super reasonable. So we, obviously encourage anybody who's going to be attending our events to become museum members because then you also get to access the museum
and exclusive things.
Exclusive things.
So
many.
Membership is such a benefit.
It is such a benefit. So we absolutely encourage that. I did just want to say something about what you were saying about like just the difference in artwork of all different genres. One thing about the art preview party that is also really unique is our auction. We have roughly, I might be lying, so don't fact check me on this one, but around 200 artists almost that participate in the Russell. Those artists, a lot of them are the ones that you will see exhibiting all over town. So they might be over at the Western Design Show. They might be over at Out West. They might be over at the Holiday Inn or at the Hotel Arvon. They're spread out all over Great Falls, but they are coming. They are participating in the Russell, and they are in our building on Thursday night having a beer and a little snack.
Yeah.
And, just celebrating this. We like to call it the kickoff, but it's,
it is. It's, anytime you can drink and eat and look at art. Isn't it just great time?
Well, and maybe talk to the artists.
Yeah. That's the heart of Western Art Week is that interaction.
It is. I feel like it's not only the heart of Western Art Week, but it's really what differentiates the Russell from other auctions is that there's this sense of a community that has been built that's really artist-centric. And so as both Jessica and you said, Rebecca, the ability to rub elbows with those artists and hear from them. And we are super proud of having like a record number of historic pieces, but we also have a record number of contemporary pieces. And so
And what does contemporary mean for us? For those of our listeners that don't know stuff about art?
We like to say breathing.
breathing.
They're
'Cause
alive.
You said the historic in this component is
Dead. Contemporaries alive.
yes.
Okay.
Living legends versus
So
Yeah,
it's
there's-
not like a
legends,
style
yeah.
of art. It's just people you could talk to today versus people you can't talk to today.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what's great about Western Art Week is that it attracts the best Western artists, not just from Montana, although we have a lot of them in Montana. They come from all over the country, all over North America to be part of Western Art Week and be part of the Russell. It really is the place to be for Western art and the premier art show every year. And we're lucky it's in our backyard.
It is so amazing. So we've talked about the Saturday night auction. We've talked about the kickoff preview party where you get to see all the art that will be sold. And you hinted to the Friday first strike, but you also have art that has yet to be created that you have an event for.
Exactly. Well, most of them have been started. They'll be finished at Art in Action. I don't want to overpromise.
Starts with a blank canvas.
Yeah. Art in Action is one of my favorites. We invite 26 artists who, by the way, donate all of their time and all of the proceeds from those pieces being auctioned to the museum. It's an amazing, it really is. It's super generous and we're really appreciative. And the crazy thing is that we can only take 26 and we turn artists away that are willing to do that just out of the goodness of their heart, which is pretty awesome.
So I have to ask, it must be like a really small 4x4 piece if they're willing to donate it. No?
Isn't that crazy? They come up
So
with the
real.
most beautiful pieces. One of my favorite parts of it is not only that they're finishing the work right there and you can sit and talk to them and see, ask them about inspiration or painting styles or whatever, but
Ask them to put a bird in.
yeah, be like, I'm going to buy that. Could you tweak this for me a little bit? But we actually make them, and I say that in all seriousness, get up on stage and sell their own piece. So you actually get to hear from the artists, and some of them welcome it, and it's really fun. Others drag their cute children up there to get enticed for the the best price, but. It's really fun. It's really interactive. Again, ticket price for members, $65. That includes your mimosas and your Caesar and
You
a
had her at
Bloody
Mimosa.
Mary bar that has all the garnishes you can imagine.
Fun.
It's a
And the
brunch.
food's incredible.
Yes, and the food is incredible. It's a brunch. It's put on by the Metal Art Country Club. It's really, really fun, and it's like I said, it's interactive, and it's very social. But then ends with an auction of those 26 pieces.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, you're allowed to do stuff
Okay,
too.
thanks. You're saying the member price is the Art in Action for members only.
Oh.
No, we
Okay.
have a non-member price.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
but
do.
here's the deal. If
I
you want to know
follow
the
up.
non-member price,
Yeah.
you're going to have to search it out yourself because it's going to be more and you might as well just be a member.
Right.
Okay,
So then
keep going.
my follow up to that is, how soon up to the event can I sign up for membership?
So I am encouraging people to purchase tickets in advance.
Yeah.
Like Chris said, this is a record-breaking year. We have so much interest in it. I have no doubt we will sell out.
Yeah.
Don't wait. You'll be disappointed.
You will be sad.
You'll miss the boat.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping if everything is going the way that I think it will, we'll probably sell it in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Time is of the essence,
Yes,
people.
so it's we have to do it now.
Don't dilly-dally.
But we are happy to sell you a membership, and we are more than happy to sell you tickets to this event. But you'll find
I don't have to have been a member for a year to be able to join and do that. Okay, perfect.
anytime.
So we've talked about kickoff. We've talked about Art in Action. We've talked about First Strike, and we've talked about Saturday. Minus the 26 works of art that have yet to be created, how many pieces are you selling off or auctioning off between Friday and Saturday night? And then we'll just add the 26 on.
I
You
think
know that?
what we say
It's like
3
330 pieces.
Yeah.
Holy
Because
moly.
it's what, over 120
Historic.
historic pieces alone.
Largest
Okay.
contemporary.
You know, just to backtrack and add about First Strike,
Yeah.
one thing that's different this year is just due to like the sheer number of Russells. We are selling Russells on Friday night as opposed to any year in the
Crazy.
past.
Yeah.
Yes. And you guys, these Russells are it's all like realms. So it's anywhere from like a high-end masterwork all the way down to like a pen and ink or a pencil, letters.
Napkin on a bar napkin. That's
I mean,
my dream.
we have so many different Russells that I am really encouraging people to not write it off. Like so many times people say, well, I can't afford to go to the Russell or I can't afford to buy a Russell.
Baloney.
That is just not the case. It's just not true. And I think especially this year, we have something for almost any price range. There's something for everybody, and it's definitely worth checking out.
And First Strike is usually for the newer art collector. It's kind of, I mean, if you're an older art collector, you're not, I shouldn't say new or old, novice or experienced art collector. It's all for you. So don't feel like you can't go to either one. But
no, and Friday night, I look at
is
Friday
there food
night.
and drink?
That's what I was just going to say.
That's
Friday
what I
night
needed.
is a little bit more casual, right? Like, so it's kind of a little bit more fun and light. So our food, you guys will love this, is almost like a Taste of Great Falls. We have 6 participating Great Falls caterers that are all coming
that's really
together.
neat. Yeah.
We have complimentary beer and wine with your First Strike ticket. Again, it's a lot of
bottomless.
yes. Bottomless. Would I do anything different?
That's my girl.
It's also theater row seating, so it feels really a little bit more welcoming, not quite so
intimidating.
Yes, like you're sitting in the rows, everybody's having a good time. We have pub tables everywhere, so it's a little bit more casual. It's
so
jeans.
basically, you pay your ticket to do Taste of Great Falls and drink, and then art shows up, and you can bid on that too.
Yeah, it's really fun.
For those of you who are scared of doing an art event, because I know some
this would be a
people
good one.
are. Let's
It's a
frame
great
it
way to
as you're
dip your
going to get
toe
a
in it.
ticket for Taste of Great Falls with bottomless drinks, and some art's going to show up, and you can raise your hand and buy it.
It's really fun.
Easy as that.
I think our tickets probably have already sold out.
Yeah.
Just based on that.
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
That's why I'm a marketer.
Is that the one is that at the Newberry?
No, so
Okay.
it was both Friday night and Saturday night are at the Heritage again this
Okay,
year.
yeah.
But Friday night is it. I'll tell like a super fast story. I won't dwell on it. But my brother is an electrician at Northwestern Energy, and he's like, "There's no way I can go to the auction and buy a piece of art."
Baloney.
He walked right in there. Like I look in the front, like 4 rows back, and there's my brother bought like lot number 4, and I was like, "You didn't even want to wait and see if you liked anything else?" And he's like, "No, I loved it." And I mean, after that, he's hooked.
funny.
And he tells everybody like that. It really is an event for anybody.
Yeah. I echo that. My husband is the same way. We go to auctions, not art auctions, but like the farm sale auction, and I was bidding on a huge croc. And the croc started
Croc, like a alligator croc or like a croc
yeah, because
pot
that would make
croc?
sense in Montana.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's like a big
Red wing croc.
earthenware. It's a
Okay,
red wing,
okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like huge, and I'm bidding on it, and it gets up to 50, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to spend all that on, just
50,000.
$50. And so,
Thank you for that clarification.
Did it have a lid and was it chipped?
no, it was chipped. It was
Yeah.
old, but it's big, and so
It's
I'm
good you
like,
didn't bid on it.
I'm done, and it doesn't
I'm a red wing
necessarily
croc collector, so
doesn't really
Oh.
fit
Yeah.
with my decor, and so I stopped bidding, and my husband looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing? We don't start to stop." Nope, that's the whole point of bidding. Like you set your
Literally
number.
everyone except one stops.
Okay. So we go to an art auction at the Out West, and I start bidding on this beautiful piece. And he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we don't start to stop, remember?" And he goes, "We cannot afford you to keep going." I'm like, Yes, we
Which
can.
one is it?
Well, a lot of people come to just watch the bidding.
Mhm.
It's so much fun.
And I would say some of the most captivating moments we have every year is when the really big Russells go up. And this year we got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a lot of kind of edge of your seat. Watching a Wimbledon match is different.
Who's
Bidders.
getting in?
Yeah. Who's
Some
gonna
are
get in,
very,
who's gonna
very
win this.
subtle. It's like a
Oh.
barely your eyelid moves kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me also say, I am the most scared at an auction that
To
I
make
will
any
sit on
movements?
my hands because I don't want to. Like someone might point my direction. I'm like, oh, did I bid? Did I just bid? And I'm looking around, and then someone else bids. I'm like, oh, thank God. Like I thought maybe I bid somehow, and I didn't know. So I get real nervous at auctions.
Well, here people have paddles.
Yeah,
so
I was like, do you have tips to avoid that?
you won't end up buying a Russell just by scratching your ear. Yeah.
like I don't move. I sit on my hands, and I'm like, don't make a motion, don't move. And then someone starts staring at me. I'm like stoned. I'm like, just stay like a statue. They won't call on you. And then all of a sudden they're like, yep. And I'm like, that was in my direction. What happened? So
We actually had a staff member last year on Friday night who was standing up at the balcony, and she saw one of our guests down below, and she's like, oh, hi, waved. And
got called.
Cody
See?
was like at her, and she's like, oh, no, not me, not me.
I was just
See,
waiting.
it happens.
You do have to be careful waving from the balcony. How about
fair.
this?
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pull us full circle back to art again, and not being scared of bidding. Some people get really confused about the type of art that is actually available, and you can actually preview the catalog online. Is that correct?
You can.
Talk to me about the catalog and what it actually is. It seems silly that we would talk about it, but it's got a lot of art in it. There's a lot of art on it. So talk to me about it.
Yeah, so the catalog really lists every work that we have in every auction, including the online auction. And the team has really well organized the catalog. I think it's the best looking catalog that we've ever had. And in a way, it was a bigger demand this year because there's just so much in it. And so,
Do you print these catalogs at all, or is it just online?
yeah, so people that buy tickets get a printed catalog.
Ooh.
But people that want to check out to see what we have before they buy tickets, you can go to cmrussell.org, and you'll see that we have an events page all set up for the Russell, and we have a flipbook catalog on there. So it's really easy to browse on a computer or a mobile device, and you can easily go through. And the photography is beautiful.
Because you do have to take some particular care in trying to capture what the piece of art is.
Absolutely. And some things are harder to photograph than others. So it's never, there's no replacement to being in front of the work of art itself. And so it's why a lot of people come to the preview party. They come in advance to really see things, particularly if the catalog catches their eye. But the catalog is great because you learn about the artist, you learn about the year it was painted. Some of the more signature pieces throughout will have some history and some write-ups around it. So whether you choose to buy those pieces, you get a good education on some of our highlighted pieces in the auction. And so the catalog, I think it's funny. Most people I know who come to the auction every year, you can go to their house and they have a whole shelf of catalogs.
Oh.
And those are fun things to collect themselves. But probably the most accessible one is on our website, and you don't even have to come
It's
to the
for
Russell
free.
to see that. You can.
That's silly why you
yeah.
wouldn't go to the Russell, but I mean, you could.
Well, we put it out there because it really is irresistible once people see the lineup of art, particularly this year. This is a don't miss year.
Do either of you have a piece that you're really excited about in the auction that you might say you'd bid on yourself?
Oh, I've picked out a couple. Oh my gosh, there's actually too many. There's one Charlie Russell illustrated letter that I'm absolutely in love with. I think it's so cute and really fun. That one's going up on Saturday night. That's a letter. I think it's called A Letter to Percy, maybe. Sorry.
Friend Percy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah,
It's
I just really love it. It's really cool,
Oh.
and it has so many drawings in it, and you can just really kind of tell Charlie's personality in that. And so I'm super drawn to that one. And that's on display in we have a gallery that's just historic, which it could be in any museum. What did you say earlier? It could be mimic the Metropolitan.
We do. We have this one gallery. A few people are asking, why did we get so lucky to consign all this art? And we really owe a debt of gratitude to a family out of California with the last name of Rosenthal. And Sam and Elaine Rosenthal spent a lifetime curating one of the most fantastic collections of Western art that a lot of us have ever laid our eyes on.
Wow.
And their family chose the Russell. We competed with all the biggies to bring this to Great Falls, but I think they also saw a connection that their family had to the Russell Museum and the Russell community, and we're just really honored that they have consigned that collection of about 100 pieces with us. And so there's a couple rooms, if you come to the museum, that you really have to see. First of all, the contemporary art, the living artist art will blow your mind. But we have one room that I said the other night that it looks like it could be at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It will blow your mind. We'd love to just shut the doors and lock them and turn the lights off and say, you know what, let's just keep this. Let's just keep this.
No one will know.
So there's that. And then there's a wall downstairs in the museum where we display all the first strike auction art. And Jessica mentioned earlier, this is the first year that we put some historic pieces in that night. And there's this just wonderful wall of, again, anybody would die to build a museum around that. And some of those are also pieces that are really accessible to people. And I just really encourage people to come over and see it because it'll blow your mind.
How do you get these pieces? Jessica, do you go around and just, you and Chris, say, like, we'd want that and we want that? Or do people call you and be like, how bad do you want this? I might give it to you for...
Well, unfortunately for you both, Dwayne's not here to talk about that process. But Dwayne Broughton, who is the director of art and philanthropy at the museum, he's been on the show before to talk about the Russell. He has established over his 20 years with the museum relationships with consigners and buyers, and it's really a lot to do to him.
They revere him.
Yes,
and for good reason.
Absolutely. And when they want to sell something, they call Dwayne and they talk, and so that's really great. One thing about the Rosenthals, about Sam and Elaine, is in 1990, I believe, they were the chairs of the Russell. We used to have honorary chairs of the Russell, and they were those people. And so it's really neat because that their children knew that Great Falls and the Russell Museum were a part of that legacy and kind of, helped boost that collection. And so when they called Dwayne, he was so excited to think through, like, how could we separate ourselves from these really large auction houses? And I think what we do is kind of that small town. It's very personal. We interviewed the Rosenthals. We personally, made sure Dwayne has held their hands every step of the way, got the collection up here. We're putting together a really beautiful catalog for them as a keepsake. Those are all things that, those really large auction houses don't do. So we try to set ourselves aside. But Dwayne is really the ringer of this whole.
He is. He almost single-handedly puts these things together and has built trust over the years that kind of makes us a really reliable, trustworthy place if you're a big collector.
Huh. Does the museum itself, because you don't own the pieces that are being auctioned off, does the museum itself ever try to buy some of the pieces at auction for the museum? Or does Dwayne be like, yeah, you don't want to take this to auction, we'll just buy it from you?
Well, I mean, we would love to be able to do that on like Chris said, we'd like to be able to just lock up
Right.
Gallery 7 and be like, these are ours. An acquisition fund for the museum is always something that is like a big dream of ours, to be able to have money in an account that we can use specifically to buy a piece. But I think you'll remember that we did the Inch for the Ruler.
Mm-hmm.
That was a campaign to purchase a piece of art for the museum, and we did that. Chris has a dream that I'll let you tell your dream about Women of America.
Okay, so you guys know a boy can dream.
Yeah.
can't
Yes.
they? I don't know how realistic this is.
It doesn't matter.
But
That's
if you
what
don't
dreams
dream,
are for.
things aren't going
Exactly.
to happen. And so when you said, is there ever a piece that we would love to see in the museum? There's a piece that we call the cover piece every year. We call it the cover piece because it graces the cover of the catalog. And it's really usually the finest Russell work that we have that year. I think this year's piece is one of the finest we've ever had for Russell. It's called Women of America. It is one of his largest watercolors. The art historians that know a lot more about it than I do consider it one of his very top watercolors. And it's pretty interesting. We have it on display at the museum, and actually on our website we have this really incredible 6-minute video that will give anyone who's interested in learning more about Women of America a real backstage tour of what's amazing about it. And we have Patty, one of our Indigenous advisors, that also gives a perspective on the historical significance of it from an Indigenous woman's point of view, which is really amazing. But let me tell you what's in the painting. It's a group of Indigenous women, really of all generations, moving camp.
Oh,
But it's not called Indigenous Women Moving Camp,
right.
which is what Russell was pretty descriptive, and a lot of Western artists were in naming their pieces. He didn't name it that. He named it Women of America. You kind of say, oh, Women of America, that's, there's something bigger going on here.
Yeah.
And what's bigger going on there, to understand that, you have to kind of understand the historical context of what was going on in the United States at the time. So we're right after, 4 years after the passage of the suffrage amendment that allowed women the right to vote. And Congress is debating the Indian citizenship law, which granted Indigenous people citizenship in the United States and also the right to vote. And the ERA movement, most people my age think it started in the 70s, but it didn't. It started in the 1920s. And so there's really this national movement going on to enshrine more rights for women in our Constitution and our society. And here's Russell, really highly sought after at this time later in his career. He was getting commissions right and left from the wealthiest people in the world, but he always left a space open on his easel to paint something that he wanted to do. And so he creates this tribute piece to the women of America, and specifically to Indigenous women, really celebrating their role in the sustaining of Plains Indian culture. And I won't get into all of the details around it. Go watch that video. It'll blow your mind. But this piece is so significant. We could build a whole gallery in a wing on women art and Indigenous art around this piece. And would we love it if we can't afford to buy it? This
Somebody bought it and donated it to you?
Yes.
Well, actually, if somebody would,
Yeah.
particularly women out there that might want to help step forward and build something, help us carry on this tradition that Russell had to acknowledge the importance of women and Indigenous women in our community. This would be a great time for people to step forward and do that. I was talking to Norma Ashby the other day, Norma Ashby Smith, a good friend of our all, and she said, I really want to help you find somebody that will step forward and do this. And I said, geez, there's no better person than
Right.
Norma can get that
to help
done.
do
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
that's my dream, is that we start to figure out ways to at least get some of these pieces on the wall of the Russell Museum because they are treasures for the world, but specifically for Montana and the people from central Montana.
And as you're talking about that, do you want to share a little bit about, you said for 30 days, there'll be this other exhibit in the Russell celebrating women. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly, what you said?
Well, we have this piece that's celebrating women.
Yep.
Okay, that's what okay.
Yep.
Never mind. Forget.
And, well, there's a
Don't
lot
listen to
of
me.
there's a lot of women artists, particularly
Yeah.
contemporary artists. We're very, very proud of that.
Yeah.
So,
And how long will that be on display for?
so all the work for the auction is going to be on display. We just debuted it last week, and it'll be up in the museum
Until
day before
Thursday.
the
Until
show.
Yeah,
the day.
the 20th.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha. Great.
And
Then
then
it
the
moves
security-
over to the Heritage Inn.
Yes.
Security shows up. And
Oof. Yeah, I can only
Black-
imagine the
black
security
armored vans
around these.
start
Yes.
going around.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So you can come and see this piece before it goes to auction at the
Absolutely.
Russell. Wonderful.
And you don't have to wait for the preview party, but it sounds like food and endless beer really would be a great thing to do
true.
while you're seeing that. But if you're not into any of that, you can
You
just
can
tour
go there
the
before.
museum.
Yes.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. But that's exactly what we were saying is that's an example of a piece that we would not normally get to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
so
it's
cool.
pretty great.
That's neat. Is that, as someone who knows very little about art, you said this is considered one of Russell's best works. Is that by technique? Why is this one, considered one of his best pieces?
Yeah.
Women.
Well,
Well,
yes,
watercolor.
obviously.
Well, here's what I would say. Some of his most sought after pieces are oils and large oils, and this is not one of those. But this is one of his largest watercolors. And if you look at the cover of the catalog, it's mesmerizing. But watercolors always look better in person. And so this is one that you want to get up close to. So go to the museum and see this one. The colors will blow you away. But I think what makes this one of Russell's best pieces is it's absolutely his artistry. It's his technique that is revered by artists around the world. We have people pilgrimage to the museum just to get up close to his technique. His color, his use of color is amazing. But really it boils down to the topic matter and the composition. And, years ago, the most popular Russells, and they're still really popular Russells, were cowboys and Indians hunting or fighting. And this is a topic matter around celebrating women that I think is very relevant today. And if I could own a piece that I thought would appreciate and be the most valuable one in the future, I would buy this one. But I would need a couple $1 million to do it.
Right.
So
I was just going to ask, do you have a general idea of how much these pieces are going to go for? Like, I've been to auctions where any auction, not just art, where something goes for a lot less than it should. And then I've also been to auctions where things go for way more than they are supposed to. So do you give like an estimate? Because I think that almost hinders, but it also then helps for people who are like, oh, that was supposed to go for more.
We do have estimates. Yep, we do.
Oh, well,
we
that's
have
good.
them on the historics. Those are based on appraisals and previous auction results, where the contemporary are set by our artists. So they kind of look at their history and what they're selling their pieces for, and that's kind of where they decide that range, that low end and high end.
Is there a reserve? Like, are there pieces that won't sell because some moron isn't bidding to the value it's supposed to
Yes.
go for? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good.
So we're not going to luck out and get the.
I would say most pieces we sell, though, there's occasional ones that don't meet the reserve. But
Last year, we
These are-
sold every single piece.
Holy.
I was like, these are very
That was the
sought after.
Well, last year was the first year I remember that in my 8-year career that all 100 pieces sold. None of them passed, which was really incredible. I hope I didn't just make that up. I could have been dreaming of what I'm hoping happens this year.
you're allowed to dream on this podcast.
It's okay. I clearly was confused earlier. So
Let's
it's okay.
just find out later, and
yeah.
we'll all be
Yeah.
surprised.
I
That's
think
right.
the first time I showed up on this podcast, you guys told me you let the fact checkers have that day
Yeah.
off.
Yeah,
So,
great. If we could just keep on with that, that would be amazing.
Send us an email if
It's
you know
that one in
something
the corner
differently.
over there.
It's not that big, not that big of a deal.
one thing that's really fun about the estimates is some people just come to watch because there's so much energy and excitement in auction. You just get sucked into it. And I love it when I go to people's houses and look at their catalogs. I'll pull them out and I'll see if they're one of the people that tracks what every
What
piece
things sold for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's literally, you start over the years to get to know the artists and you're rooting for your favorites and you know who's going to go top dollar. And you love it when somebody last year might not have hit their mark, but then they hit a record this year. That happened to me for last year. One of my very favorite artists, she hit her record last year.
Oh,
And just to watch her excitement and root for her, they become, it's almost like they become the baseball cards you collect and the people that you follow. And come meet some of these artists because it will really have you deepen your appreciation for this amazing community we have.
so before you all were employed by the Russell and had to work the auction, did you go to the auction? Did you do parts of Western Art Week before you were ever in this world?
I did. I would go to like the Russell Skull Society suites. Remember those? They were over at the
Yeah.
Mansfield, and
Yeah.
you got to like walk through, and then of course do all of the other exhibition shows. I had never been to the Russell auction until I started working there and was tasked to help coordinate that with Christina Horton. And so I hadn't actually had a chance to go and see it for myself, which was very eye-opening and really fun. But Chris, you have a long history with the auction and the museum.
Yeah, one of the things I love is that I was actually at the museum before I was born. My mom worked there and was pregnant with me when she
Good job, Mom.
worked for the executive director as an assistant.
Wow.
And but my first auction was somewhere I'm having a hard time figuring out, but it was either 84 or 85.
Okay.
And I've probably been to 20
And that's really close
auctions.
time frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd have been like 70s or 80s maybe.
Yeah, so it all started in 1969, the year I was born. And I've probably been to maybe 20 auctions over the years, and parts of it have been the same, kind of the same kind of excitement, and but it really is an experience. It's just getting better and better every year, largely due to people like Jessica who have helped elevate the Russell to levels that we haven't seen. And sometimes people think that elevating it makes it fancier and fancier, but that's actually not the journey that we've been on. We actually experimented with really leveling it up and making it more fancy than it needed to be. Because what we've found over time is that people want to put on maybe not their best pair of cowboy boots, but they want to come put on their cowboy boots. They want to hang with us out at the Heritage Inn and visit the Sip and Dip. And this is where a visit to the Russell and Western Art Week really becomes a visit to Central Montana and Great Falls, where people come spend an entire week here and really want to immerse themselves in our culture and our lifestyle today that is still a lot like what it was with Charlie Russell.
At your first auction, regardless of what year, did you bid on a piece and did you
No.
win?
I didn't bid on anything my dad did.
Okay.
I do remember the most memorable event, and I remember exactly where I was standing.
Tell me.
I was down on the left hand of the stage, facing it, looking up at Norma Ashby, thinking that she was the most beautiful angel I had ever seen.
Oh.
Seriously. And that is about the time that I first met her, and I was 10 years old. And that actually might date my first auction. That would make it 79. I might have been 12. It was right around there, so I might have been a little bit earlier. But what's funny is Norma remembers meeting me as a young man. And in addition to coming to Russell auctions, having a lifelong relationship with Norma is pretty incredible. And we've mentioned her a couple times, but what we've never really credited her for, at least in this podcast, is she's the person who founded the Russell auction and came up with the idea. And so if you're a listener and you don't know who Norma Ashby Smith is,
That's on you, because we started early on. Norma was on and told us the whole story of starting the Russell auction. So go back in the archives, but 100% true.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Norma also, just to point out, has been to every single Russell auction that we've had. This will be her 57th year.
That's amazing.
Even when we had we did a really small auction during the pandemic that we really didn't allow anybody to come in the room. We actually asked Norma to come because we did not want her to miss one. We were like,
That's
you have to be
amazing.
in the room. It's
so
her,
she can really say she's been there for all of them.
the only person who can.
her and Steve Seltzer.
Yeah.
They're the only two people.
Steve was there too.
Yes. Isn't that incredible?
That is pretty
is.
awesome.
Wow.
So it begs the question, you're there when you're 10, maybe 12. Who knows how old you were, but you were obviously a kid. Did you have to get your own ticket, or is this one of those things where kids get to go for free?
You know, somehow I ended up talking my dad into it. He he went every single year, and I showed an interest in going, and he took me along, and then it became more of a tradition. And my mom and my stepfather, Gene and Elliot Dibdahl, were also really involved in the museum and the auction for many, many years. And I remember volunteering with my mom once when she was Audrey Olson's assistant, when Audrey was the auction chair. And if any longtime Great Falls people know Audrey Olson, she was a lot of fun. You would have loved her, Rebecca. I don't know if you knew her, but I think you're the reincarnation.
So she's a historic artist, is what I'm hearing.
Nope, just a Montana or a
Contemporary?
Great Falls leader. Wasn't an artist, to my knowledge, but just,
she is historic, not contemporary.
That's correct. She's historic.
Yeah. Well, that is pretty awesome. Do you remember the first piece you ever bought at an auction? Did either of you ever buy anything at an auction? I guess that's the better question. And do you remember what piece it was?
I'm working at the Russell, so I'm not
pulling double duty.
Yeah, I'm not technically bidding on anything, but
my first piece was at the Out West show.
at one of their auctions.
Yeah. What did
At
you
one-
buy?
It was so awesome. They had an event that it was like a pass around piece. The artist would start it, and then it would go through all the artists,
And they
adding
finished
some
it.
element.
Yep.
And then it was really unique because you got to just put your name in a basket for the piece you wanted to take home. And if your name was drawn out of the basket, you paid $200 and you got this compilation piece of art that was signed by all the artists at this develop an art piece. And it's a Whitney Weedo based piece of art.
I love Whitney.
Yeah, she's amazing. And it's an old streetcar with some people from the 1920s in it, but it's got like everybody else's flair in it. So it's got like D.G. House's chalk in it, and it's got Cody Cool's like assets of comic in it. And for $200, I've got this piece, and I love it.
That's super cool.
We
That's
also
so
then
cool.
bought a bunch more of Whitney's artwork since then. So
She's actually the artist that I said earlier that hit a record. Yeah. She's from
amazing.
Hamilton, just
Yeah.
south of Missoula, where I reside part-time. I live
Yeah.
part-time in Great Falls, part-time in Missoula, but she's a fantastic rising
she's
artist.
the artist who my husband said we can't afford for you to keep bidding on that piece of artwork. And I'm still frustrated and angered at my spouse to this day about that.
Shannon, have you ever bid on anything? We're turning the tables on the two
No,
of
that's
you
fine.
now.
Well, and I think Jessica hadn't finished telling us about her piece. So I'll just say no, I don't think I have.
Well, where I think I'm really lucky because I get to interact with the artists is I will, I have my favorite
Yeah.
artist and I'm like, hey, I'm working, but can we talk? And then I have the ability to at least negotiate a consignment deal, some kind of, not a consignment, but a, oh my gosh, what's the word?
Purchase.
What's the word I'm thinking of where you,
Layaway plan.
it'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah.
You guys,
A commission.
a commission. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Yeah.
I get to commission a piece, and I actually am hoping to finally solidify a really beautiful commission piece soon. I hope. Fingers crossed. It's been something I've been working on for the last 5
I
years.
just
awesome.
I want to note for the record
Yeah.
that I asked you a question that
You
you
did.
avoided, and that happened the first time I was here too. I've noticed it's really
She's
hard
really
to turn
good.
the tables on her. She,
Oh, well, I just want to
She
make
went
sure
to
others
school
got
to
to
learn
finish.
how.
But
I
yeah.
know.
So to answer your question, some of the time, so my husband and I, for a couple of years, emceed the quick draw and quick finish at the Out West show. So those didn't get to bid on. Last year, I think I was working, taking photos, videos, checking in with some people. So I haven't, I don't think I have not gone to as a ticket holder, the Russell. So I don't think I have.
She has purchased art,
Yeah,
just not at auction, which
correct.
I'm telling you is a whole different
I
experience.
know. It always looks fun.
Shannon was also our MC at our last
Yeah.
fashion shows. She did
That
it
was
for a
really
couple
fun.
of years.
Yes, that was really fun too. That was a really neat
Well,
event.
thanks for
Yeah.
everything that you've done.
Oh, no, thank you. This is my excuse for why I haven't bid on anything.
So, Chris, before I ask my next question, what was the first piece you ever bought at auction?
We bought this piece that hangs above our fireplace in Missoula, and we thought it was of that mountain near St. Ignatius, but after we bought
you thought it was? Uh-oh.
But you loved
it's
it.
down by Jackson Hole. And
Oh,
we're like,
shoot. Yeah.
oh, but we still love it.
Yeah.
We still really love it.
Was it not in the title?
It was. That was. We just didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say
Oh, that
it
was
was
an interesting name for it.
Yeah.
Jackson
No.
Mountain.
No, I know exactly. You know, when you're a beginner at something, and
Oh, yeah.
and at an auction, I just think I had beginner's jitters. But I love the piece, and it gives us a funny story to
Yeah.
tell about it.
Um,
My very favorite piece I bought last year it's a Jennifer Johnson piece, and one of the things I like to do is to buy smaller pieces that match some of the bigger pieces in the auction. And so we bought two smaller study pieces from two of our favorite artists that are smaller ones that they did to prepare for the bigger ones that they did. And that's also a more accessible way sometimes to buy art because they're much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But they still, give you that feeling of what owning a bigger one would look like.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the art is really big.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that means you have to have really big walls.
Or
Mhm.
build a house around it.
Exactly.
There's been a few
Should do
pieces
that,
where
yeah.
I'm like, oh, if I build a house this way,
Yes.
I could be able to put that there and it would
Mhm.
be perfect. Because a lot of times the discussion my husband and I have is, where are you going to put that piece?
Yeah.
Like right next to the cathedral that you bought, which fits with all the elk. Like, come on, honey.
It's
What
all
are
right.
you
You
doing?
can make it all work
Yeah.
together.
So we just kind of hinted about all the people that are working, contributing, doing. It takes a lot of hands to make this happen. Not just, we're just talking about one show during Western Art Week, the Russell.
Mhm.
That doesn't count all the other things that are happening. So
Right.
tell us about how you make this happen every year.
Oh, I don't know. I'm brand new to the museum. I can't take any credit for making this happen. People like Dwayne make it happen. Our curatorial team, like when you guys go visit the museum and see what's hanging, what they had to do to hang 330 pieces of art in the museum and fit it in will blow your mind. And it looks like we are a world-class museum. So shout out goes to so many people on the team, but really the person leading it up is Jessica. So how about if you share a little bit about, because there's people all over the community that are helping.
Absolutely. I mean, our staff aside, it takes every single staff member. I mean, that's what's really incredible leading up to this is it's everyone. If they're in curatorial or they're working security or their education, it doesn't matter. We are all hands on deck. It takes every single one of us to pull this off. But aside from that is we have volunteers that come back every single year that help us with hospitality and registration. I work right now with NBAR and Clark and Louise. They kind of become my catering consultants. That's who I am meeting right after this important
There you go,
podcast.
yes.
But I meet with them and they have gotten so creative over the years of reaching out to other caterers to make Friday that taste of Great Falls and and Saturday, a little bit, more focused on on heavier foods. They've been amazing. It's kind of something that has grown over the last 7 years, I'd say, to pull it off. And I absolutely couldn't do it without them. They also bring in their own staff and their own volunteers to make sure that everything is going really smooth. And same with the Heritage. I mean, that staff, last year, we didn't know what we didn't know. This year, I feel like it's year number 2. I feel like so excited to be able to do this event twice in the same place. We have not had that since 2019. So, that's really exciting. And their staff has been really incredible. We also work with My Viola, and I have 2 super dedicated decor volunteers, Katie Meyer and Katie Johnson, who the Katies, that's what I call them. It's just the Katies.
Perfect people for that job.
And they are so creative and they think outside of the box and they help me come up with, the best decor that I can in the space that I'm in. And I've put them in some interesting spaces and they have shined. So, it's definitely so many people that are contributing to this, and it's the only way we could pull it off. I think we see right around 2,500 people between museum guests and who's coming. Now that's repeat that, they might be at Friday and Saturday, but some are just Thursday. Even though it's one human, but it's people at each event when you add it up. I mean, it's an incredible feat, and we couldn't do it without everybody.
Yeah. And Jessica just mentioned the tip of the iceberg. There's so many people involved.
And I'm going to give a shout out self-servingly. The Russell has been so gracious in their support of all of Western Art Week events and our organization and making those things happen. This year, we are offering VIP Premier Passes because most of Western Art Week is free. We've talked about the things that are ticketed events that you have to get tickets for. But we've got a VIP Premier Pass that includes a ticket to the Russell auction on Saturday night at member pricing, special to us. And you get special seating at the celebration of Native Plains Indian show for the fashion show. You get special seating at Pollo Loco. You get early entrance into some of the other shows. This is a really nice way to experience it. And I just developed, and it went out today, an itinerary to do the ultimate Western Art Week to squeeze every ounce out of this. And let me tell you, there was no room to eat. So being able to get those tickets to some of those things the Russells are doing will at least make sure that you've had food for the day, because there's not a lot of downtime
to do everything,
to get everything done. And that itinerary, if you want it, email us at information@visitgreatfalls.org. I'll send it to you. It starts Wednesday night and it goes until Sunday at 2:00, and there's very little downtime. And by very little downtime, I mean at 9:00 you get to go watch the mermaids swim
and then crash
on Saturday. That's it. So
that's the pack week.
In addition to that generosity just from the Russell, consider that as an opportunity. It only gets you access to one of those cool events. You still have to buy tickets to the others. And then you get to walk around like you're really, really cool, flaunt your VIP pass, go sit wherever you want. So who else can we say is amazing besides me?
Well, I do want to just briefly, how you were talking about the 14 other shows. We have a great partnership with Out West and the Great Western show over at the Expo Park. Also, that celebration of the Native Plains artists, that's a big deal. This is 10 years they've been exhibiting in Great Falls, and we're really excited. We have an educational symposium that is on Saturday morning over at the Expo Park. It is free and open to the public.
I was reading about this. It sounds amazing.
It's really exciting. So it's been titled Speaking Through Sign, Native Interpretation in Charlie Russell's Art.
Oh, wow. That sounds fascinating.
It really is. And Dr. Lanny Reelbird is our speaker, and he'll be looking through some of Charlie's really well-known masterpieces and pulling out things that he can interpret that Charlie had put into the work. So it's a whole nother twist on interpreting Charlie's pieces that we think is really cool and very compelling. And I think it matches beautifully with what they're doing over at the Montana Expo Park.
He
That's
might
really
might
neat.
be a familiar name to some listeners too, because he did a earlier talk at the museum through Humanities Montana earlier this year, and we loved it so much that we were bringing him back for the symposium, and he's offered to focus on some Russell work and really tie it into what our community loves to hear about and celebrate during Western Art Week.
Yeah, I was reading about him as I was putting my itinerary together because I wanted to know some more. And he was the consultant for HBO's miniseries Lewis and Clark for the sign language that was used in that series.
Interesting.
You really do your homework.
Yeah, I'm not just a pretty face around here. Guys. I come across like I don't know what's going on here, but I know some stuff.
I love that. I didn't know that about him, and I
Me
felt
neither.
like I read his bio. So thank you.
We dig deep. The dirt we've uncovered about you too. I cannot wait for a later episode.
That's right.
That's the
We did
after
bring it out.
hours
We
of
did
the-
bring it out this time. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you being on our show that we work so hard to produce every week. That's not a joke. That really is the hard work for Shannon. I'm laughing, but it's serious. So thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing the stories. Thanks for telling us all about the fun details about the events that the Russell's putting on. And if you aren't already planning, I don't know what's wrong with you. That's honestly, there's something
You got to get on that.
going wrong. Book your rooms. Get to Great Falls, March 19th through the 22nd. We've got a jam-packed itinerary you can follow. You can do whatever you want. All the events are listed on our website, westernartweek.com. And if you want someone to hold your hand, Carol's here to help you.
Carol likes to do
406
that.
761-4436. And folks, until we see your bright, smiling, happy, healthy faces here in Great Falls, we do hope you're creating amazing memories with your friends and family wherever you might be. We'll see you all soon.
We're No Dam Experts is the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing damn town. Damn, that felt good.